So really quick, I just wanted to touch on, in conclusion, some of the issues with Progressive. What we run into is, even if my policy is not constructed for a devaluation claim, I should have been able to have been connected to a supervisor while I still had that car, because I had specifically talked to Todd Ching, the claim rep assigned to that claim, and I had requested, while I still had the car and while it was at a accredited Volkswagen dealership, to be forwarded to a supervisor at that point. He never did that. So that's that claim rep's fault and issue. Because if he had done that, at that point I could have had a discussion with the supervisor, Chris Clauson, about the feasibility of moving forward for a devaluation claim once I got rid of the car. Alternatively, what should have happened is Progressive people should have come to that shop with a mechanic from the shop, and they should have, at any point before I got rid of the car, done further analysis. Because when I got it back the day or the day after, I brought it directly to that shop in Missoula, and they did the compression test, blah 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 blah, and they said it was due to the prior work and the deer incident, combination of the two, the reason the air conditioning didn't work. So it's problematic because you at Progressive, under the law, are required to pay out damages for that when there's a problem. So even if it's not technically a quote-unquote devaluation claim in terms of interpreting it, they needed to, under law, with their contract with me, coordinate to get their people to go and look at that car when it was at that Volkswagen shop. Because their claim rep did not forward me to a supervisor in a timely fashion, that is not an excuse. They failed at meeting the contract. Now, even if that car was unable to be fixed, right, and unable to be fixed in terms of the air conditioning, still, they would have had to go to do a specific itemized budget analysis at a Volkswagen shop with an actual Progressive person. In other words, when I brought it to that Missoula shop, it was on a Sunday, the only place I could find that was open, and I was trying to do that, bring it to a shop and get another analysis on why the AC didn't work as soon as I could after I had got it back from that Duluth Volkswagen en route to Alaska. So if that makes sense, we weren't able to coordinate with the Progressive rep. I also wasn't even able to get it into a Volkswagen of Missoula, for instance, but the woman at the desk had noted as well that it was probably due to that prior work. But when I did bring it to the shop in Missoula, he did the compression test. We were there for like 3 hours. It was 100 degrees, and it was very frustrating. He had a receipt for the work. We called it into Progressive. He faxed it right physically while I was there. I had a copy of the receipt. I gave the invoice number to the 1-800 number of Progressive over the phone. So I still have the receipt, I believe, with me now as well. So, I've done everything I could on my end. Further analysis needed to be coordinated. I had it at a Volkswagen shop. I had emailed and I had phone called Todd Ching, and I said, hey, we need to get a supervisor on the line to approve this. We need to coordinate to get someone to come and look at this car. Now, because I was told out there, and because he never did his job getting me to a supervisor, and I was told that they would do devaluation, we did not get a Progressive rep to do that further analysis. And so we could come up with an itemized budget. But regardless, under law, when there's those damages, they need to do an appraisal and they need to pay that out. And the fact that they refused to coordinate to do that appraisal, and we were forced into the place where I thought that there was going to be a devaluation thing, and now they're saying my contract didn't say that. It doesn't matter. They are at fault because they did not coordinate with me while I had the car in my possession at a approved Volkswagen shop for their Progressive rep from this other region to come and do an appraisal with the Volkswagen mechanics to talk about what it would take to fix that car, what kind of parts need to be replaced. Now, even if they did not want to do the work, and even if, you would just look at a similar car and say, in a typical job, fixing air conditioning or that kind of thing, who knows. But, we're at that place where they refused to connect me to the supervisor who could approve that A, the additional funds, but B, just the coordination of having a rep there to do that appraisal so that we can come up with an itemized budget towards working towards another supplemental claim. Now, even if those mechanics didn't want to dive into it and do it, which is what I was running into at other shops, we still needed to have the coordination with the Progressive rep to come up with that itemized budget. Now, regardless, any which way you look at it, Progressive is required under law to pay out funds for the I don't want to say devaluation because it's not a devaluation claim, but that's essentially what it is. Because the AC worked, now the AC doesn't work, well, they need to pay funds for that. But what they're paying funds for is what it would be on that supplemental claim that would make the air conditioning work. What are all those parts? If you hit a deer and you damage your headlight assembly and your bumper and some other part, those lists of those parts, that's quite a bit of money, and all the stuff that goes into that. Even if the person who has the car just replaces a light bulb so he can still drive down the road, Progressive is required under law when that assessment's done to pay out the funds for all of those parts. This is one and the same to what we ran into with this deer claim, where the air conditioning didn't work after the Duluth mechanics worked on it and after that deer incident. Now, there is a host of parts within that car, or there is some damage within that car that needs to be fixed, and an appraisal and an assessment with a mechanic and with a Progressive rep needed to be coordinated. And I had contacted Todd Ching about that, in addition to right when I got the car bar back, bring it to a shop and doing that 3-hour thing and then faxing the receipt and everything, and they chose not to get back to me and chose not to coordinate with me and chose not to connect me to a supervisor in a timely fashion while I had the car. And they forced us into this place where we thought the only option moving forward was a devaluation claim. Now, my policy apparently, according to Chris Clauson, says there is no room for a devaluation claim. Well, my policy also very clearly states that, there is no room for Progressive reps to fail at doing their job. In other words, while I had the car, you would have needed to connect me to a supervisor so we could have approved additional supplemental claim. We could have approved and coordinated a Progressive rep doing a further appraisal and analysis with regard to the different parts that would need to be replaced to fix that air conditioning. And that needed to have happened in a timely fashion while I had the car. Because they failed at their job and they say that they're out of the office and they don't do their job and they put us in this position, that's 100% the fault of Progressive behaving and acting in a way inconsistent with not only the language behind the marketing and advertising of their insurance business, but 100% inconsistent with, just basic business people skills. So, it looks like they went out of their way there, and it looks like in other instances too, based on the verbal dialogue with myself and the people in Coon Rapids when I went in there, it looks like those guys just hide out and they try to put this off, and like he said, well, I guess you didn't get connected to Chris until too late. Well, it sounds like that they're doing that on purpose almost with myself and many other clients, making it almost impossible to get to the supervisor level and get these things resolved for clients at Progressive in a timely fashion for their clients. So it looks like that they're doing things in an intentional, deceptive way to basically circumnavigate the language of the contracted client. Not just me, but many different clients have with them, Progressive Insurance Company, and put their clients in a place where their clients are not able to get their insurance policy that they paid for honored by Progressive, because Progressive will do everything they can to make it so that their clients cannot get connected to the proper people in the correct and proper timeline, and they're just left in the dark with emails not getting returned or phone calls not getting returned, and very gutless, pathetic, quote-unquote out-of-office replies that are totally inconsistent with all of that advertising marketing behind Progressive where they're always available, blah blah blah. So it's really disingenuous for Progressive, the insurance company, and it's problematic because it's inconsistent with my contract. Now, even if my contract did not say devaluation claim, it very clearly says, if I hit it, if there's outstanding damage on that vehicle because of that deer claim and that shop work or combination of the two, you need to have a Progressive rep come and do an appraisal and assessment with a mechanic, and we need to line out what would need to be fixed. Now, even if we find mechanics who want to dive into it and do that fix for that air conditioning, there are still parts, there's still a process, and you need to outline that stuff, and that stuff 100% under law needs to get paid out to the client. And that's where we are with Progressive. They are dishonest and they owe me that money. Now, even if we don't do a devaluation claim, Chris Clauson, Todd Ching, Jennifer F. Klander, that team of Progressive still made so many mistakes. Progressive, the big company, needs to know about it. They need to hold them accountable. And Progressive, the big company, has to pay me out money. We have to look at an appraisal for half a dozen other different make and model cars if you want to for this sort of thing. Dear, what did the Duluth Volkswagen replace on this car? When you need to fix an air conditioning, what are the other parts? Is this a couple more $1,000? What needs to go into this to get a typical car like this running when something like this happens and the air conditioning doesn't work? And those funds from those numbers, need to be assessed and compared to what happened with my car, and a number needs to come up, and that number needs to get paid to me. That's the way I look at it. When I talked about a devaluation claim, that was the language that was used by Progressive reps in Oregon. Now, my policy might not specify devaluation, so we have to go this other angle, but this other angle is a 100% accurate and legitimate angle, because just like when I talked to Scott Briggs and the Pacific Northwest supervisor out there, just like I just went over a second ago, I don't want to be too redundant, but if there's damage to that vehicle, Progressive is required by law to, number one, appraise it, and number two, pay it out. And just the fact that they were not only dragging their heels, that they basically refused to connect me to a supervisor to coordinate to even begin that baby step towards an appraisal shows that they basically broke the contract with me and did not do what I paid them to do. So they owe us, I think, the blue book value of the car. They owe us the money for several months, and they also owe us hard truth. They probably owe us the actual itemized budget for an air conditioning fix. So I think, and I really think, there should be more of an effort to be diplomatic on the behalf, and just have basic business skills on behalf of that team with Progressive in Coon Rapids and stuff, and actually look at the claim and actually engage with me in a proper way, and not just try to circumnavigate the language of the contract and basically be disingenuous and not do the job the right way. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm at. I really got a very poor impression of them professionally, and I don't think there's much you can do to reconcile the way they behave and shit versus the language with the marketing, the advertising, and there's a real big glaring inconsistency between the contract I have with Progressive and what actually went down with regard to this claim with those guys. So, that has to get paid out and has to get fixed. They're required under law to do that. Thank you.